Hello everyone and welcome to Who Wore It Better, the weekly segment in which I review Raw and Smackdown back to back and try and figure out which show won for the week. Fastlane is over. Mercifully, we are done with all the pay-per-views leading into WrestleMania, so now all we have to do is wait for that sweet, sweet build-up. Hopefully they'll deliver. Raw opens up with the return of Jericho. He basically comes out and says that he takes full credit for screwing Kevin Owens out of the Universal Championship at Fastlane. He wants to know, why, Kevin, why? Why did you screw me? Why did you betray me during the Festival of Friendship? Kevin Owens comes out, and there's actually some really great stuff promo-wise between the two of them, especially Kevin Owens. It's just more of that like heel who feels so justified in what he does. You see a lot more backstory here between him and Triple H that was never really fleshed out last year when Kevin Owens first won the belt. Talks about how Triple H told me when I won the belt that, you gotta watch your back. Everyone's gonna come after you, so you gotta find someone who's going to protect you, be that buffer. And so he pitched Jericho as kind of a mark, basically. So he admits that he and Chris Jericho were never best friends. They were never friends to begin with, as far as Kevin was concerned. He could have ended Chris Jericho's career at the Festival of Friendship, but he let him get up and walk away because he was thinking of Chris's family. He says, because I'm a good person. It's just so cool to see like a heel who's so evil and so twisted, yet believes that everything they do is something that's justified, or they do something that makes it good for them, makes them a good person, like Kevin Owens said. Like, it validates what they do. This leads to the challenge being thrown down. Chris wants Kevin at WrestleMania. Kevin wants the match for the US Championship. They both accept. They start fighting. Samoa Joe comes out. Sami Zayn comes out. This leads to a match between Kevin Owens and Sami Zayn. Boy, this is the second or third time in the last couple months they've fought. Sure, puts a lot of weight in the whole Battleground match they had last year where they're not going to fight ever. This is the end of their rivalry. Never going to fight again. And they fought at least 3 times, at least twice in the last month alone here. This match doesn't do much. It doesn't go very far. Sami Zayn starts a house of fire. Kevin Owens, cuts him off. 2 pop-up power bombs, and that's all she wrote. Neville defends the Cruiserweight Championship against Rich Swan, and wow, 2 incredible Cruiserweight Championship matches in as many nights between Sunday and Monday. On Sunday was Jack Gallagher, on Monday was Rich Swan. Very different matches because very different styles. Gallagher is a ground-based wrestler with a bit of comedy thrown in. Swan is a striker with some high flying. So you get different dynamics and you get very different, enjoyable matches. I would say it's probably one of my favorite matches of the year for Raw so far, early in 2017. I'm not going to try and do a blow-by-blow about the match, but if you haven't seen it yet, or if you've missed either of those Cruiserweight title matches, then I recommend you go seek them out. But beyond that, not to take anything away from that match, the big story here is the book ending. First, you had Austin Aries talking about his big package and making Corey Graves and Michael Cole just kind of like corpse on air, talking about the package. Austin Aries is coming back, and then at the end, A-Double goes out to interview Neville. Neville gets in his face. Aries kind of subtly, suggests that maybe he should fight Neville for the Cruiserweight title next, because Neville says, there's no one else to take me on, the king of the Cruiserweights. And so then, Neville gets in Aries' face and says, I'm going to re-break your orbital socket. And then Austin, the dramatic removal of the glasses. And then he winds up attacking Neville. He's, I'm going to make a statement. He hits him. The discus forearm looked great, and the crowd went nuts for it. Austin Aries is now officially back, and he's probably going to be taking on Neville at WrestleMania for the Cruiserweight title, which should be a really good match. The second hour begins with Goldberg coming out to address his Universal Championship win. He thanks the fans. He thanks his family. Paul Heyman comes out, introduces Brock Lesnar. They have this cool stare down, and as they're staring each other down, and Lesnar wants to shake Goldberg's hand, and Heyman just talks this big game. He puts Goldberg over in a huge way, but at the same time, he just all of a sudden does this huge swerve and tears him down, saying, after WrestleMania, people are going to look at you and say, hey, that's Brock's bitch. And there's like this moment of gasp and shock that he said that. And then Lesnar, turns on him. Instead of doing the handshake, he puts him in an F5. Goldberg's like hanging onto the belt while he's up there the whole time. And Goldberg takes the F5, and it's the first bump he has taken in the entire time since he's been back, since late last year. So that's kind of noteworthy. Lesnar finally asserting his physical dominance over Goldberg for a change here in this renewed rivalry. I mean, we've seen him on TV here and there between the Rumble and now, but this is the first time we've seen him in the ring actually doing something. And, he didn't look that great in Survivor Series or the Rumble, but like this episode of Raw where he actually F5s Goldberg and knocks him out for a little bit is a step in the right direction. action. Raw tag titles on the line in a rematch from Fastlane as Anderson and Gallows defend against Enzo and Cass. You know how I feel about next night rematches from pay-per-views. That's neither here nor there, though. The whole story with this is there was a conflict earlier in the night between Enzo and Cass and Cesaro and Sheamus. Cesaro and Sheamus actually do come out. Cesaro's drinking the same cup of coffee he did in hour one, in a very similar scenario to when Sheamus and Cesaro fought Anderson and Gallows for the tag titles a couple of weeks ago. Enzo gets out of the ring, he bumps into Cesaro, spills coffee everywhere. It's Jericho Kane all over again from the year 2000. Cesaro chases Enzo in the ring, and there's a big schmoz. Basically, all three teams have a scuffle, and then Mick Foley afterwards says that Enzo and Cass and Sheamus and Cesaro are going to fight next week to determine who will face Anderson and Gallows for the title at WrestleMania. I have a sneaking suspicion it's going to be a bullshit finish that means triple threat tag team match. Then after Foley makes that match for next week, Stephanie McMahon comes to Foley and says, you know, you better come to my office right now. And then in a weird move, I don't think they ever really had a follow-up to that. Like, there was a bit of tension between the two of them in the segment at the top of hour 3, which I'll get to, but beyond that, there's no real development on that front, which kind of confused me. Wregret was announced to be in the Hall of Fame this week, and I have to say, about damn time, because he is historically one of the biggest omissions in Hall of Fame history. If you think about, like, in the last several years, who are some of the biggest names, like, who up until recently, like, didn't get in, and people wanted to see in? Like, you see the Freebirds, and Randy Savage, and now Wregret, and now those guys are all going to be in, or are in the Hall of Fame. Then there's, like, Owen Hart, and, you know, British Bulldog, Miss Elizabeth, and names like that. Who knows when, if ever, they're going to end up in the Hall of Fame. But, you know, putting Wregret in there, I think, is it's definitely it's a make good. It's definitely something. It's a positive thing to see Wregret in the Hall of Fame. The New Day come out and basically do the same shtick they did the night before at Fastlane, talking about ice cream, but they threw in a squash with the Shining Stars in there too. So hey, it's different. The third hour begins with a segment with Mick Foley and the women's. First out comes Bayley. She's basically says she's bummed that Sasha interfered on her behalf to retain the championship against Charlotte at Fastlane. Sasha comes out right after that and says, "Hey, Bayley, since we're friends, let's have a championship match at WrestleMania." Then Charlotte and Dana Brooke interrupt. Charlotte says she's the victim of collusion. She's the victim of a conspiracy, essentially. And again, kind of like Kevin Owens, Kevin Owens feels validated in what he believes in. He feels he's in the right. Charlotte also believes she's in the right too. And, you know, like I said at Fastlane, what happened at Fastlane certainly makes me feel kind of sympathetic to Charlotte in a way. So I think that Charlotte, you know, even though she's the heel and we're supposed to not like her, she has a really good point. It's a tricky tightrope because you can empathize with heels. You can say that, oh, okay, they make some good points, but ultimately on a moral basis, the heel is still in the wrong in this particular situation. But with Charlotte especially, like, she's totally in the right, and so she does have a claim. So the fans go, yeah, she did get screwed, you know, we're still not supposed to like her, but just objectively looking at it, yeah, I think that she's owed something. Stephanie McMahon comes out. There's more of that tension between her and Foley, but it's not at the level, like I said earlier, not the level you might expect for, like, you know, what they've been building to. But what did blow up, what was a huge thing, was the CM Punk chants, because they were in Chicago. You heard them all night, but they were never louder than they were for when Stephanie was out there. They reserved all their energy specifically for her, and I tell you, they were so loud, like they were drowning her out as she was trying to, like, cram her talking points in and get them out of the way. I hadn't heard something like that in a long time, if ever. Stephanie says that Charlotte is a lock for a women's championship match at WrestleMania, but she makes a match between Sasha and Bayley. If Sasha Banks wins here, then she will be inserted into that match as well, making it a triple threat. This match between Sasha and Bayley, you know, nowhere near the level of what they did on NXT, but it was still a competitive match. Hard to pay attention to what was going on because you heard those constant yakking on commentary with Corey Graves, you know, kissing Charlotte's ass, and Charlotte's basically saying, oh, Bayley's never beat me one-on-one, which is a bold-faced lie. The match ends as Charlotte and Dana come down to the ring from the announce table. Charlotte tries to interfere, but she inadvertently helps Sasha win via Banks' statement, so now Charlotte looks kind of a dum-dum. She basically turned her one-on-one match with Bayley into a triple threat by interfering, but Charlotte gets her heat back by knocking out both women in the ring, holding up the championship. The one thing I have to say is, where does Nia Jax fit into this scene? I mean, there's still some time to build to something at WrestleMania, but I mean, where is Nia Jax going to fit in? Well, that's the way they've been building her up this whole time. We go to a video package showing Seth Rollins' rehab process for his knee. I'm sorry, but if Beautiful Day by U2 isn't playing throughout the package, it's just, you've lost me. They go to a satellite interview with Triple H where he talks about, oh, the great care that we as a company give our athletes, so Seth Rollins should be thankful and not go to WrestleMania. The way he was talking, some people theorized that he was taking kind of a dig at CM Punk for the way, like, he felt he was being treated medically in his last few months of the company. I don't know, maybe it's people are reading into it because it's in Chicago. I don't know for sure. Maybe it's a little bit of from column A and from column B. Then Triple H takes a dig at Rollins for saying, oh, he made it the nickname of the man. He made that up himself. I never had to make nicknames for myself. I'm like, bitch, you called yourself the Game. You said you were the Game and you're that damn good. And I'm pretty sure no one was calling you the King of Kings before you started coming out with a skull crown. Emma is coming soon. It's the return of Emma. My body is ready. I'll see you in 2018, Emma. The final match of the night is Chris Jericho taking on Samoa Joe in part B of what happened earlier in the night with Kevin Owens and Sami Zayn. And much like that match in hour one, this one doesn't get very far before it ends, which is unfortunate. It's kind of a downer because, you know, we've never seen these two wrestle before. It was cool seeing them. You know, they're both busting out some familiar spots. It was really fun to see these two wrestle, and then it just kind of gets ended really quickly because Jericho goes for a baseball slide. Joe catches him, puts him in the coquina clutch, knocks him out outside, so Samoa Joe takes the count-out victory. Then afterward, Joe picks up Jericho, throws him in the ring. He wants some more of him, but Jericho hits him with a code breaker, so Joe wins the match, but Jericho gets his heat back. I really want to see more of these two down the line in a match with something of substance, but I think it got the points for both men across. Joe continues to look just like a beast. He's killing people left and right, and Jericho, going into this match with Kevin Owens, he's still looking strong-ish. Braun Strowman comes out and he wants himself a piece of Roman Reigns after what happened at Fastlane, but instead of Roman Reigns, it's really weird, interesting music cues they did, because it starts out with the first couple of seconds of Roman's theme, then it goes to The Undertaker. Oh shit, The Undertaker comes out. A holy shit chant starts. Really cool stare down with Taker and Strowman. Then you see Strowman walk away, which I think is unfortunate. I mean, I think, you know, we all kind of saw Undertaker Roman coming, but for Strowman just to kind of like back off and not do anything is kind of counterproductive to his character. He seems like a guy who just wants to beat people up, and you know, you saw him chomping at the bit when Taker announced he was going to be in the Rumble. The first thing he did was cut to a shot of Strowman, and so you want to see that interaction, but if we're not getting it now, who knows where Strowman ends up with all this. But then what happens is Undertaker's music plays for 2 seconds, then Roman Reigns' music hits. It's really weird. I don't know if it was like an intentional thing or just a weird coincidental error, double error, or what, but Roman Reigns comes out and he does kind of a heel thing where he says, this is my yard now, and he's immediately just chokeslammed for his troubles. So is Roman a heel now? Because I mean, there's no way he can be a babyface against Taker. There's no way that's ever happening. So I guess he's going to be kind of, I would think he's going to be painted into kind of a heelish light here, maybe testing the waters for a proper heel run. You know, hell of a way to test it out, I think, because nothing he does in the interim between now and Mania is going to make him look like a good guy against Taker. So they might as well, you know, heal him up. SmackDown begins with a 10-minute segment of Shane and Daniel Bryan coming out and basically providing the exposition that we as fans already know what's going on. We know what the title situation is and the number one contendership thing. We know all that. Like, and you just showed a lot of that exposition in a package just before all that. And so I thought that was a little redundant. Shane did say, oh, in the history of the Rumble, no Rumble winner's ever abdicated his shot at WrestleMania. Totally forgetting that Vince McMahon himself did that in 1999, but oh well, that's just way in the past. I didn't even count. James Ellsworth and Carmella taking on John Cena and Nikki Bella in a match that, in Ellsworth's own words, we would never see again, and thank God for that. I just realized actually watching this, I think Ellsworth, in a way, has kind of got John Cena's old white rapper gimmick, if you think about it. He and Carmella, it's like tandem, they get destroyed at the same time. Nikki hits the Rack Attack 2.0 on Carmella. Cena hits the AA on Ellsworth. They both hit their versions of the STF on each of them. They tap out simultaneously. It's a great moment, and then you see Nikki and John have this kiss, but then The Miz and Maurice, who were on commentary earlier, do tandem cheap shots. Then The Miz gets on the mic and just eviscerates John Cena. It's like, you know, last week was a pretty good burn on The Miz's part to John Cena, but this one I think he took it just the next step, talking about how, oh, you know, John Cena and Nikki Bella were never supposed to acknowledge their relationship until recently, until we became the it couple. He calls Cena a robot. He says the couple, you know, him and Cena and Nikki being public with their relationship helps promote Cena's brand. Like, oh, just totally destroys Cena here. It was a great promo by The Miz, and it really just helps establish more like why The Miz is probably one of the best promo guys of his generation. Dean Ambrose goes out and murders Chad Hawkins twice in one segment. He's really outdoing himself this week, folks, and he wants a piece of Baron Corbin. He goes to the back. He goes all over the arena looking for Baron Corbin, who just comes up and blasts him with a lead pipe, hits him twice really hard with it. And I loved Ambrose's sell here. He's getting him good talk, and then that's not enough, though, because Corbin then continues to assault Ambrose and then pulls a Mankind at halftime heat and pins down Ambrose with the business end of a forklift. I don't know Baron Corbin. I had no idea he went to vocational school, but apparently Ambrose's throat and his ribs were injured as a result of this, and the announcers are putting this over as this totally reprehensible thing. Oh, he's way out of line here, which I think is kind of weird. Like, you know, if you think of all the envelope pushing moments we've seen wrestlers do, even in this last year, in this PG era, I don't think the forklift was the worst thing ever. Alexa Bliss gives her blissertation, and she talks about she's running down all the opponents, the people who she will not be defending the women's championship against. She calls Becky Lynch Chucky, which goes over like a fart in church, but then Becky Lynch comes out. She and Alexa have some more awkward conversation. Then Natalya comes out and says she wants a shot. Then Mickie James, who was with Alexa at the beginning, says, no, she's fighting me, right? And there's this whole big argument. Natalya calls Mickie James ugly. Okay. Daniel Bryan comes out and says, Alexa, you're going to defend that championship at WrestleMania against every available female on the SmackDown roster, which implies to me there's going to be more women than those 4 who were in the ring at the time of the segment. Maybe an Eva Marie returns in the works. This leads to an impromptu tag team match. Becky and Natalya taking on Mickie James and Alexa Bliss. The heels win after Alexa steals the pinfall from Mickie James, and so then Mickie kicks Alexa in the face. So now that team seems to be dissolved. The whole time the announcers are going, what kind of match is it going to be? I'm thinking it'll be kind of like the Cruiserweight Open from WrestleMania 20 when Chavo had to defend his belt against all the cruiserweights, but it was kind of a gauntlet match setting. So maybe that's what's going to happen here. I would be open to that. Main event time is Randy Orton takes on AJ Styles to see who will face Bray Wyatt at WrestleMania. At this rate, we're going to be having number 1 contendership matches for WrestleMania until June. I don't have much to say about this match other than the fact that it was great. You know, 2 of the best, most solid workers in the company going at each other in the main event on SmackDown. Can't ask for much better than that. The finish was great too, because Styles goes for a phenomenal forearm, but he does a fake out, and Orton he goes for the RKO, but he just takes a bump. Styles, he sees licking his chops. I love the shot that got Styles too when he was setting up for the second one. He goes for the phenomenal forearm again. Orton rolls out of the way, and he hits the RKO, and he wins the match. So between Baron Corbin and Randy Orton, we've got a man who tried to kill another man with a forklift. We've got a guy who committed arson. Give them championship matches. Time now for me to decide who won for the week, Raw or SmackDown. And you know what? I think both shows now are really starting to get into that WrestleMania gear, really starting to turn the wheels for their biggest WrestleMania matches. But I got to pick one. And I think overall I got to go with Raw for this one. And let me tell you why. First, let's start with SmackDown. I think the Miz promo was absolutely fantastic, and Orton Styles was a great match, although it was kind of a foregone conclusion, in my opinion, that Orton was going to win and go on to face Bray Wyatt. But speaking of Bray Wyatt, where was Bray during the show? I mean, you could argue, oh, he was so inconsolable after the fire that he just didn't show up. You're telling me he couldn't have teleported in at the end of the match and said some ominous words to Randy or something? No Luke Harper for the 3rd week in a row or something. No tag teams to speak of at all. You've got, you know, the American Alpha tag team champions ever since, you know, they had their thing at Elimination Chamber where they fought every tag team and beat them convincingly. Like, what are we going to do with them? Like, we had those 2 weeks of bits where them and the Usos were going to fight, but they didn't, and then they just fell off the map. Where are they at? I don't know what's going on with them. And then the opening segment where you got Shane and Daniel Bryan talking for a very long amount of time about things that we as an audience already know. I mean, I don't think anyone who missed a week or 2 of SmackDown was going to not know what was going on. So in my opinion, SmackDown made decent use of the 2 hours they were given. They did the best they could, but ultimately I think there was too many components for the matches they were even promoting that were just missing from the whole thing. And you know, there will be time in the next few weeks to build to those things, but I think, you know, I look at things on a week-by-week basis, and I just think there were too many things missing for me to really think SmackDown was the stronger show. So I think Raw was the stronger show. I think the whole first hour was amazing, with the exception of maybe, you know, Owens and Zayn. That match was kind of meh, but I think the pacing and the storyline being told with the opening promo with Kevin and Chris was very, very strong. I loved the Cruiserweight Championship match and the subsequent fallout with Austin Aries. Goldberg Lesnar, that segment at the top of the second hour, I popped for that, I'm not going to lie. Ending with Undertaker was a very strong thing that they did there. Again, don't know what they're going to do with Strowman. But yeah, I am going to say the second hour was very weak. I did not like the second hour at all. The lack of any kind of real noticeable blow up between Stephanie and Foley, just the whole thing where see me in my office, and then like we don't know what happens there. We don't know where that goes. was kind of confusing. Where's Nia Jax in all this? Again, we're going to have time to build, hopefully, to see Nia Jax involved in the women's scene at some point before Mania, but it just seems weird that, considering she had this big high-profile loss to Sasha at Fastlane, we didn't see any kind of follow-up this week on Raw. But overall, I'd say Raw was the stronger show, even though the second hour did drag. I think the first hour was fantastic. The third hour did just enough, especially ramping up near the end to something enjoyable with the Undertaker and Roman Reigns. So yeah, I'm going to give Raw the win this week. Let me know what you thought about the shows in the comments section below, and don't forget to vote for which show you thought won for the week in the little thing up here, the gimmick on the upper right-hand corner of your screen, the poll. Be sure to thumbs up this video if you like it, subscribe to Wrestling with Regret, and buy the t-shirts at ProWrestlingTees.com. I'm Brian Zane, and I'll see you next time.